Remember back in the day when everybody started using LinkedIn and the UX had the front dashboard, basically whatever you wanted to see was the homepage for your profile. And it was your academic, your experience, and where you worked. Basically, the three simple, there's like resume online in the beginning. Well, what has happened is because social media has become more of a personal judgment leaderboard. Uh, that's why people decided that they started to give themselves new titles. Because when you're looking online, you don't just want to be that one thing. You can be a whole bunch of things. Also, you can rebrand yourself illegally, which is probably how I'd like to phrase that. And what I mean by that is, no, no, you're not CEO. Basically, what you are is you're a business owner or the person that created the company. And now, because that culture, corporate culture in startup culture, is prevalent enough, you feel like you're missing out, right? Like, hey, man, I own a company too. I don't want to just be company owner. I want the title CEO. So I'm gonna log into LinkedIn and I'm just gonna add it there because that's what I am now. That epidemic is like hilarious because you can totally see all the people that add that just to increase their ego or just to help it out a little bit, pumping their own tires on social and digitally pumping your own tires. Anyway, all the colleagues in all my colleagues in the digital business, we laugh at that hilariously. It's like a constant joke, and I'm sure anybody that would watch this that understands what I'm talking about would probably laugh as well. Maybe it's said out loud, maybe it isn't. I find that I don't mind saying it out loud because it's a joke. Yeah, everybody's a CEO and everybody's a founder. Founder, okay, I can understand it to some extent because the word it does actually have meaning. The person that founded the company or the idea. But it's not godlike. It doesn't make you divine. It's yet another title. And usually, I can imagine just how would I put it this way? I'm sure that the super geeks of the world that created companies that are worth billions of dollars, when they started becoming founders, or people started calling them founders, that must have been a huge stroke to that ego, that was never stroked that way before. So obviously, that became very appealing again as a title, as a personal rebrand. But let's be honest, no one gives a fuck about your company. Usually, maybe they do, but there's not enough people in the world to give a shit about the company that you created. Let me phrase that. You think your company is more important than the world does, of course, because it's yours. Uh, but I'd like to put it into a benchmark scale and compare it to all the other businesses in the same industry. Where do you stand? Um, I'm sure that in the world of startup, there's thousands or tens of thousands of founders. Um, which ones are the most successful and which ones are actually better founders? Which founders are better than other founders? I feel like we should have a founder war. Is that what it is? Should we just take all the founders and have a game show? We need a game show, and we put only founders on it, and then all those founders play against each other for the best founder. Oh God, that's ridiculous. But it's not so ridiculous because I'd watch that. I'd watch that in a second. It'd be the best way to finally take those founders out of the category of founder that isn't a real founder, and then they can go back to just being a business owner, which is exactly what they are. They're not. It's not a religious title, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people that put that in LinkedIn consider it a religious title. Putting yourself above the peasants, basically. Anyway, so LinkedIn in general is a cesspool of lies and it's a place where everybody it manufactures something that isn't real on so that they can feel better about themselves. And it's a joke. But at the same time, I understand the potential of a social network that isn't Facebook business, because it's Facebook started personal and then became corporate, and like had a corporate function, but it's still Facebook. So wasn't Facebook. LinkedIn was business first, so it kind of isn't as dirty as Facebook for business. So it's still clean enough to use for the purposes that it was created for. However, we have to figure out what LinkedIn means to you. And recently, what LinkedIn has started to do is started to compete with Facebook by having like certain things parallel. It's certain things have always been there, but now they're just more prevalent, like following and status updates and writing inside a feed. Like that's now there are people that actually pay attention to that first in their day or the most often in their day versus they never used to do that at all. So that's good because it's like a cleaner way of talking about business on the internet. So of course you have to use Facebook because it's something in the mix. But in terms of the stack, your personal social stack, we'll call that, LinkedIn is in there. So that would be like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook business page on Facebook. You can tie in your personal in there too, depending on what you do for a living. So if, say, for example, you mentor people like I do, my personal can blend with my business to an extent. And I don't mind that advertising because it works for traction. So if someone accidentally stumbles on my personal Twitter feed versus my podcast Twitter feed versus the automated method business Twitter feed, as far as I'm concerned, they all work together. Now, some people would say that doesn't work. That's not a good thing for your personal life, and you can start to infect the business with personal, etc. But everything's so distorted these days anyway that I look at the disruption is just keep doing everything randomly just for exposure, because that's all it is. Plug everything everywhere because you need to, because there's so much competition out there, and also no one gives a shit. So the more traction you have, the better you're gonna do. It's a volume game. It's a numbers game. So exposure is a numbers game. So because culture is so shallow now and vain, do it anyway. However, um, like I said, that might not work for your business. I think I'm just lucky in that sense because it does work for my business. So I'm just going to keep doing it. Anyway, so now LinkedIn is now a social icon that has become like an image that you can put places that indicates that here, click here for our LinkedIn profile or my LinkedIn profile, etc. Uh, but for the most part, uh, never thought about it until recently because of the age of the people that my niche market, which is I'm I'm awesome at consulting a startup business. Like the same merit. I can say that I'm just as good as giving the advice to a traditional business in hopes that they want the same things that a startup wants. And this is what I want to let everybody know. That's the same thing. Startup businesses and traditional businesses should want the same thing, which is how do I profit? How does my business maximize profit? How do I remain competitive? How do I scale? And I mean that word, it's so all over the place, but all that means is if your business is doing well, why wouldn't you want to grow it? Because that's the idea. That's how business works. But a lot of traditional businesses have a fear that's built into their entrepreneurial mentality. And so scaling is, reproduction of yourself. So what they think I can't clone me to scale, so therefore I'm not going to grow any bigger than I can handle myself, which unfortunately is not the way to look at business, because everybody looks at business the same way, which is if I'm doing well and I have something that everybody wants to buy, then I can grow, not stay small. I can understand maybe sometimes there's limitations that you want to put out personally, but if you ever say the words like "my business can't afford" or like "we can't do that because it's too expensive," however, you're selling a product or a service that is actually that people want a lot of, then you're denying yourself this freedom of wealth or this freedom of growth that you is actually expected by the world because they're all doing the same thing. All the other businesses want to do it, but you're denying it to your own self and your own business because you have the fear of growth, and that's it. So let's say what I'm really good at is talking to businesses that are traditional about what they could do to modernize their business. Now, does that mean that they're going to do it? I would say the scariest part is I get off a call with somebody and I know that they're not convinced that they should do a modern conversion to a cloud stack of apps or a modern marketing rebrand or any of that stuff because they think they don't need to do it. Yet the next call that I'll have with a really ambitious young startup is all of that is already assumed and they'll do it without question. They just want someone to help. And that's where I come in and that's where my business comes in. But then I hang that call up and talk to another traditional business that wants to migrate to modern and the same thing might happen. I'm not sure. I don't know if I need to go to cloud. I don't know if I really require a new website. And in my mind, I'm like, well, the answer that I just gave to someone who's doing it that's winning is I don't even, like, they didn't even question anything. They're looking towards me, my business as a solution. And now I'm on the phone with you trying to convince you that that's what you need to do, which is crazy because I feel that's where I'm compassionate about business and passionate about, just the way business works. Like I love business. And so I feel bad because I'll like hang up the phone and that person is not convinced and they're not going to do it. And they're going to get the shit kicked out of them by their competitors that think the way that you're supposed to these days. So are their revenues going to go down? Yes. Are their margins going to change? Yes. Are they going to have questions like, I don't understand. Why is this happening to me? Yes. So modernize now, or else you're in big shit. Like, because the way I put it, all those nuclear powered, laser guided missile android sharks, which I will call millennial pure digital startup businesses, now are starting to get into traditional markets. So traditional industry is getting a new injection of young talent. And so they're not tired. They don't use the word busy because they understand that denies access to their time. So like we can get into that too. And they're all ready to rock and roll. Okay, so I'm all over the place right now, but we have. So I was saying startup, scale, and exit. So yeah, the people I I talk to the best are in an age category of, let's say, and I'm going to be very specific here because I'm transparent and I know this is something that works, about 45 to 55. Okay. And so the reason why, and usually it's like a business that was started, that's now small, medium business, maybe a large business, where someone decided that they were going to do something new in the 90s, or like maybe like the late 90s and the early 2000s maybe, and they're now, whether or not they're married and have kids, but they are like could have started as a family business and then grew to like the corporate idea with like now there's a little bit more prestige to the logo, the office is somewhere else instead of their home, et cetera, et cetera. These people are not thinking about exit strategy like a pure digital startup today is thinking about exit strategy. Businesses that start today that are pure digital startups what they're building into their model